Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here. And in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Friday, February the 19th. We're going to run through Friday's 9-game slate, break it all down team by team. We'll start off with the Warriors and Magic game. We'll run through each game on the slate. We'll talk about each team. Look at what stands out to me looking at this slate the night before. Recording this video on Thursday night, so these are my early thoughts. What I do like, the night before. But before we do get started with the breakdown, guys, as always, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button down below. Hit that subscribe button as well. If you are new here, be sure to click that notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. You also get notified every time I do go live. I was going to live stream yesterday, had some things come up, and I wasn't able to stream yesterday for that, short little 3-game slate for Thursday, but I will definitely be live this afternoon, Friday afternoon, probably around 4 Eastern time. We'll be live breaking down the slate, answering all your guys' questions. If you are free during that time, if you're free Friday afternoon, you want to tune into the stream, I will be live on my YouTube channel. We'll be breaking down the slate, answering all your guys' questions, and if any news comes out throughout the day, we can obviously touch on that in the live stream as well. So be sure to tune into the live stream, hit that like button, guys, hit that subscribe button. Also, be sure to check out my exclusive content on Patreon. I do have a lot of additional stuff over there. If you do really enjoy the videos that I put out on YouTube, you want to see more that I have to offer, you can check out my Patreon link down below. Get access to my core plays, get access to our Discord chat. I have my cash and GPP sheets, my player pools, my rankings. I have a lot of stuff going up on Patreon every day, so check that out, link down below if that does interest you. But yeah, let's go ahead and start off with the Magic and the Warriors game, first game of the night. So starting off with the Warriors today, Draymond Green, this is a big injury we do need to watch. I believe I saw that he was expected to play, but right now on the injury report, he's listed as questionable. I thought I saw somewhere, yeah, right here it says that he is expected to play, and then we got an update that he's questionable. For now, I'm just going to assume that Draymond plays, but obviously if he's out, that will definitely impact a good amount. The Warriors are already without, their other centers. There's no James Wiseman, no Kevon Looney, no Marquise Chris. Last game when Draymond Green was late scratched, we saw them actually start Michael Mulder. They just kind of moved their lineup around. He wound up in the starting lineup. He only played 14 minutes, though. He didn't really get a ton of run, but we did see Kent Bazemore get a ton of run off the bench, and I think if Draymond sits again, Kent Bazemore is probably the biggest beneficiary just because, he's the guy that could get more minutes off the bench. They don't really have a center to replace Draymond. It's going to be a lot of small ball. This will be something to monitor. I'm going to have a good amount of interest in Kent Bazemore if Draymond's out. If Draymond plays, though, I really don't have too much interest in any Warriors today outside of Draymond. I think if he does play at 6,600, he still is a little bit too cheap. He would definitely be viable on this slate, but really not many Warriors stand out today. If the team's fully healthy. If Draymond sits, though, I think Bazemore benefits. Maybe Anderson gets more run, but he only played 21 minutes last game. Eric Pascal off the bench played 32, but, you never know what you're going to get from Eric Pascal. But if Draymond sits, I think, Kent Bazemore is the biggest beneficiary, and I think Eric Pascal gets a, small bump as well, but I would prefer Bazemore just, straight up over him. Now, moving on to the Magic side, it's kind of the same with the Magic. Not a ton stands out for the Magic today. Vooch, especially if Draymond winds up sitting, it's going to be a great spot for Vooch. At 9,900, he's not really a top option on this slate. Not someone I would be getting to in just one lineup. But if you are playing multiple lineups, it is a good matchup here for Vooch. I think he's someone you can definitely have in your player pool. But Terrence Ross, I know he had a good game last game off the bench, but I'm not paying 6,500 for Terrence Ross, especially, assuming Evan Fournier plays today. He is probably expected to play. I'm just not going to pay that price tag for Ross. Cole Anthony remains out, so Michael Carter-Williams is going to start. Probably going to play close to 30 minutes, but I don't really like him that much at 5,100. This is just not that appealing of a game. I think the only guys I would target here are some, cheap values on the Warriors, Bazemore, Pascal, if Draymond sits, and then, if Draymond sits, I'd like Vooch a little bit more. But, yeah, we can go ahead and move on to the next one, Denver and Cleveland. So on Denver today, this is a team that has been dealing with a lot of injuries. We've had a lot of guys out for Denver lately. Right now, we do know that Gary Harris, Paul Millsap, and PJ Dozier are all going to remain out. JaMychal Green, I believe, is probable. He's expected to play. But Will Barton is questionable. That is a pretty impactful injury to watch. If Will Barton does sit, that just boosts the minutes for Michael Porter Jr. That made me feel better about JaMychal Green. But really, I think on this Denver team, we just want to go to Jokic and Murray. Those are the two guys right now that are dominating the usage. Jokic at 11K. On this slate, I don't think Jokic is a top pay-up option for me. I think I'd rather prefer to go to Giannis for a little bit cheaper. Embiid's in a great spot against the Bulls, and I do like him. But, Jokic is someone that's always viable. I just don't know on this slate if I'm going to really be going out of my way to pay up for Jokic. I think if he fits into my lineup, I'm totally fine playing him, but not like a first guy in. I think there are other studs I'd rather go to. You know, Jamal Murray's been playing incredibly well lately. We've kind of seen the old Jamal Murray putting up big games. Last game against the Wizards had 61 DraftKings points in 40 minutes. Like, he's been playing really well. You know, the price tag is now up to $8K, so I'm not as high on him as I have been recently, but he's still viable, especially because I just expect this Nuggets team, the usage on this team is going to be dominated by Jokic and Murray right now, especially while Will Barton remain out, assuming, you know, Barton sits here. I just expect Murray and Jokic to do everything. So I do have interest in both those guys. Neither are priorities for me, but I think both are playable. I really don't have much interest in Michael Porter Jr., though. Even with Paul Millsap still out, you know, JaMychal Green, I think at 5,300 is just a little bit too expensive for my liking. And then the bench guards like Monte Morris, Campazzo, I just don't have any interest in. So moving on to the Cleveland side. Cleveland, not that appealing of a team today. We do know Andre Drummond's going to remain out, you know, until something happens and he gets traded. With Drummond out, obviously that benefits Jared Allen. You know, Jared Allen's appropriately priced now. He's almost 7K. You know, it's 6,800. Jared Allen still has plenty of upside at this price tag. I expect if this game's close, he's probably going to play about 32 to 34 minutes as long as he can stay out of foul trouble against Jokic. That's a little bit of a concern, but, you know, we know Allen's going to be productive when he's out there. We know he has a ton of upside. I don't mind him on the slate. Is he a top center option for me? No, but I think he's definitely viable at 6,800. Really, though, the guy that I like most from Cleveland is Cedi Osman. So Cedi Osman, 4,800 on DK. I still like him a good amount on this slate, and he's still very cheap on Yahoo as well. If we look at the Yahoo pricing, Cedi Osman just $12 over there. We do know that Taurean Prince is going to remain out today. Prince was out on their last game on Monday against the Warriors, and we saw Cedi Osman get the start in that game with Prince out. Played 35 minutes, had 38 DraftKings points. Like, Cedi Osman is someone that can be productive when he does get minutes, especially with this Cleveland team, a team that, you know, doesn't have a ton of insanely high usage players. It's not like he's having to play alongside LeBron anymore. I mean, Cedi Osman can definitely produce when he's given the opportunity. I expect the minutes to be there. I think he's going to play probably 35 to 36 minutes if this game's close, maybe even more. He was on pace to play like 38 minutes last game, but it was a blowout. I still do like Cedi Osman at 4,800. You know, with no Prince, with no Larry Nance, there's just a lot of minutes available, you know, in their front court, and I expect Osman to get, you know, a good amount of those minutes. So really, really like him, but I think that really does it for Cleveland. So moving on to the Atlanta and Boston game. Now on Atlanta today, not a ton really stands out from the Hawks for me. We just saw these teams play on Wednesday. They're playing again today. Trae Young did have a pretty good game Wednesday in this matchup. Had 57 DraftKings points in 35 minutes. I don't know if I can get to Trae Young at 9,500. I think he's appropriately priced. If I was going to play Trae Young today, I think it would be over on Yahoo. He's still pretty affordable over there. He's only $40. I think Trae Young at $40 on Yahoo, you know, is definitely underpriced. I think he's going to be pretty low owned on this slate, so he is someone that's going to be low owned that has plenty of upside. Don't really have too much interest in Capella or Collins, though. I think Cam Reddish is a decent value play. He's 4,500. We've seen the minutes be there for him the last two games, 36 and 34 minutes. And he's been pretty productive as well, 30 and 29 DraftKings points. You know, Cam Reddish is not someone I usually enjoy rostering. Like, it seems like anytime I do play Cam Reddish, it never goes well. But without DeAndre Hunter, we should expect the minutes to continue to be there for Reddish. He has been starting recently. If he's going to start and play 35, 36 minutes, at 4,500, he is definitely in play as a cheap option. You know, on a bigger slate like this, I have a feeling we're probably going to have better value open up as the day goes on, but Reddish definitely viable if you do need like a cheap small forward. I think he's for sure in play, but that does it for Atlanta. Now moving on to the Celtics. So we do have a big injury to watch here. Jaylen Brown is currently questionable for Boston. This is very impactful. You know, I don't know if Jaylen Brown being out is going to open up like a ton of value. Normally Boston, they kind of spread out the minutes when it comes to their bench guys. Like, even with Brown out, we might not see, you know, a clear value play, but I think if Brown does wind up sitting, that makes me a lot more interested in Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker. Jason Tatum would probably be one of my favorite plays of the day if Jaylen Brown does wind up out. I had a lot of interest in Jason Tatum last slate when Kemba Walker was out in this matchup, and, you know, Tatum played really well, 55 DraftKings points in 35 minutes. If Jaylen Brown sits, I'm totally fine going right back to Jason Tatum. Even if Jaylen Brown plays, I still think Tatum is viable, but I don't think he'd be as much of a priority. But, you know, all three of these main Boston guys, Tatum, Brown, and Walker, I think are all viable in the slate. Walker's probably my least favorite, but if Brown sits, I'm going to have a lot more interest in Walker. You know, Walker hasn't been as good as Tatum or Brown. He's been a lot more inconsistent this year, but we've still seen Kemba Walker pop off at times. He's not going to play massive minutes. We know that. He's going to be limited to probably 30 to 32 minutes. They said they're keeping him on a minutes limit for for a good amount of time, for at least another week or two. So he might only play about 32, 33 minutes, but especially if Brown winds up sitting, I'd still like Kemba even so, and obviously I'd like Tatum as well. But I don't think I'm going to be going to anyone else on Boston. Like, Daniel Tice is back for this game. He's probably going to start at center, play close to 30 minutes. For 4,500, he's viable, but I don't really see him as being like a top value for me. I think that really does it for Boston. Like I said, if Jaylen Brown sits, I don't know if we're really going to get much value here. I'd assume probably like Grant Williams would start if Brown were to be out. Grant Williams is 3,100. He's someone that we've seen even in spot starts, like even when he does get into the starting lineup, he could literally play 30 minutes and give you 10 fantasy points. Like, just none of these bench guys have too much upside outside of like Peyton Pritchard. Maybe Peyton Pritchard would be the one bench guy I'd be willing to go to if Brown sits. But yeah, that does it for the Celtics. Moving on to the Bulls and Sixers game. So on the Bulls side, we know that Lauri Markkanen, Otto Porter Jr. are both going to remain out today. Zach LaVine at the top, 9,300. I think him and Trae Young are kind of similar plays for me. They're both, lower-owned contrarian options that have plenty of upside. It's not a great spot for Trae Young against a good Boston defense. Philly's defense has been pretty good this year. They're going to get Ben Simmons back for this game. I don't really want to, or at least in terms of matchup, I'm not going out of my way to play LaVine because of this matchup, but I think he's still viable with the massive upside he has. We know LaVine can go out there and put up 50-plus any night, so he is someone I have some interest in from the Bulls. Wendell Carter, I think, is viable as well at 5,200. Now, this is obviously a very scary matchup against Joel Embiid, and Carter could get into foul trouble here. Like, things could definitely go a little sideways, but last game, it was good to see him get up to 27 minutes. He's going to just have his minutes limit, slowly increased just as he gets more playing time. I'd assume today, as long as he's not in foul trouble and this game's close, we probably get around 30 minutes from Wendell Carter. At 5,200, if we're going to get 30 minutes from him, I think he's a fine center option. Is he a top play? No, but definitely someone that is viable. Him and LaVine are the two guys I have interest in from Chicago today, but not too much interest in anyone else on the Bulls. Now, looking at the Sixers, Ben Simmons is expected back today. He was a late scratch last game, but he's expected to play today. With Simmons back and with this team pretty much fully healthy, I've said it before, when the Sixers are fully healthy, the only guy I have interest in is Joel Embiid, and that's once again the case today. In a really good matchup against a Bulls team that has, always been one you can attack with big men. The Bulls have always struggled to defend bigs. I think Embiid, looks like a very solid pay-up option. I don't expect him to be that popular today, so another guy that has a ton of upside that should be lower owned. I do have interest in him at 10,700, but really no interest in anyone else on the Sixers today. So moving on to the next game, Detroit and Memphis. So for Detroit, we know Blake Griffin is going to remain out until he gets traded or something. Sekou Doumbouya, I believe, is questionable. He's questionable. If he were to play, that made me a little bit less interested in Saddiq Bey. I don't really like Saddiq Bey much anyway, given he's almost 6K on DraftKings. Really, on this Detroit team, there isn't too much that stands out today as like a top play. As top plays, I think Jeremy Grant at 7,500 is viable. Last game he went off against the Bulls. He had 43 points, but he didn't really contribute with any peripherals. Only had 2 rebounds and 1 block, which was just really weird to see. Normally Grant can give you peripherals, but yeah, Jeremy Grant's an upside. Like, he's a guy that has upside, can put up 45, 50 any night. I don't mind him at 7,500. Another guy that's like not a top play for me, not someone I'm really going out of my way to target, but I think he is someone I'll be looking to. He'll be in my player pool most likely. He'll at least be in consideration for me. DeLon Wright would probably be the next guy I would look to on Detroit, 6,100. He was pretty bad last game against the Bulls in a good matchup, but he still played 39 minutes, and I think that's what's really good to see is that DeLon Wright is getting the minutes. He's locked into 36, 38 minutes a night right now. At 6,100, if we're going to get 36, 38 minutes from DeLon Wright, he is still viable for me. Him and Jeremy Grant, I think, are the two guys I'd be looking to from the Pistons today, but not too much interest in anyone else on Detroit. Now, moving on to the Memphis side, I really like the pricing on Memphis today. I think Memphis is a very appealing team, and for me, it does start at the top with Ja Morant. I think Ja Morant is just too cheap on both sites today. 7,400 on DK, in my opinion, that is too cheap, and on Yahoo, he's only $30. I like that price tag a ton for Morant as well. So lately, we finally started to see Morant kind of look like his old self. Last 2 games against New Orleans and OKC, he's been really good. 46 and 51 DraftKings points, 31 and 35 minutes. He had a triple-double last game against OKC. there's no reason for Ja Morant to be 7,400, especially now that he's back to playing 35, 36 minutes, which is what I assume he plays today if this game is close. Detroit, they do play slow, but they're not good defensively at all. It is a favorable matchup for Ja Morant. We know the upside this guy has when he's playing, 35, 36 minutes. He can contribute in all categories, gives you triple-double upside every night. I really like him at 7,400. I think he's definitely way too cheap on this slate. Do have a lot of interest in Ja Morant, and I think Joe Val is too cheap as well at 7,100. Great spot here for Joe Val against this Detroit team. Detroit, another team that has really been bad defensively against big men this year. Last time I checked, they were allowing the most fantasy points to centers this season, or like second most fantasy points. So very, very favorable matchup here for Valanciunas. Another guy that, when the minutes are there, we know the upside that he has, can put up 40-plus DK points any night. I do like Joe Val quite a bit on the slate as well. I think he's probably one of my preferred options in the mid-range at center if you are going to the mid-range. Kyle Anderson at his price tag, I'm not the biggest fan of. He did have a big game last game, but he also had 1 block and 5 steals. He, a little bit of a fluke there. He only played 26 minutes. I mean, Anderson has been insanely productive on a point per minute basis lately. He hasn't been getting a ton of minutes, but he has shown like 40-plus point upside even when he's only playing 25, 26 minutes. I think I like him more on Yahoo, where he's still pretty affordable. He's small forward. He's $24. Again, if you're looking to that mid-range, I think, a small forward, Kyle Anderson is a very solid option. But I don't know if I'm really going to be going to anyone else. Dylan Brooks is questionable, so that will be something to monitor. If Dylan Brooks were to play, I'd assume we'd get maybe more minutes for I really don't know, because, D'Anthony Melton is questionable as well. I'd assume if Brooks plays, or if Brooks is out, that D'Anthony Melton would probably start if he were to play. If D'Anthony Melton were to be out as well, then we probably get more minutes for Desmond Bane. I don't know if there's going to be any great value here from Memphis. Even if Desmond Bane starts at 3,800, he's not going to really project as a top value play. Not a great point per minute player. He'd be viable, but still wouldn't be a top option for me. But at least, Brooks being out will impact some. It made me feel a little bit better about Grayson Allen. It would make me like either Melton or Bane, whichever one were to start. But that really does it for Memphis today. I think definitely, Morant and Valanciunas look the most appealing on the Grizzlies today. But we can go ahead and move on to the next game, OKC and Milwaukee. So on OKC, there really isn't too much interest for me on this Thunder team. They're starting to get fully healthy again. Al Horford is back for this game after resting their last game. Really, the only guy that remains out for OKC is George Hill. They've got Diallo back, or they've got Theo Maledon back. He's good to go. They've got SGA back. Al Horford's playing today. They've got 11 bodies now, so everyone's kind of fully healthy. There really isn't much value from this OKC team. I think if you're gonna target anyone on OKC today, it is probably SGA at 8,200. Another guy that's probably just more of a contrarian option. There's other guards I like in his price range. We're going to talk about Fred VanVleet, who I really like. With Kyle Lowry not expected to play, I'd much rather play VanVleet over SGA. But SGA should be pretty low owned on the slate. We know he always is someone that can pop off and put up 45, 50 DK points any night. I don't mind him, but really don't like anyone on OKC as a top option today. Nothing from this Thunder team stands out as top play now, or stands out as a top play. But moving on to Milwaukee. Milwaukee is pretty appealing. Giannis and Chris Middleton are the two guys I like here. Chris Middleton, not as much. I mean, Chris Middleton's just been so bad lately. I feel like he's someone you want to buy low on. He's going to have a good game at some point, especially while Drew Holiday remains out. We just know the usage is going to be dominated by Middleton and Giannis. I know Middleton's been terrible, but I still have some interest in him just because I think the upside is still there. He's not this kind of player. I mean, Middleton is someone that can put up 50-plus DK points, especially when Drew Holiday is out. I still have interest in him, but obviously the top play from Milwaukee today is Giannis. I think Giannis looks like one of the best pay-up options on the slate. I do prefer him over guys like Jokic and Embiid. I think Giannis is my favorite guy above 10K for sure today. He's just been so good, man. I know he wasn't great Thursday night against Toronto. He fouled out in 37 minutes. He only had 53 DK points, but we saw what he did against this Thunder team when they played, about a week ago. It was a close game. Giannis played 36 minutes, had 74 Draftkings points. The Thunder have nobody to guard Giannis. I mean, Lou Dort's a good defender, but he's just too undersized. He's not going to stop Giannis. Al Horford at this point is not going to be a guy that's going to stop Giannis. Giannis is my favorite pay-up option. It's just a matter of can we fit him in today. There are some values right now that stand out, but there's also not a ton of value. So we'll just have to wait and see what value opens up. If there's enough value that I can get Giannis in, he's definitely the guy I want to pay up for today at the top. But that really does it for Milwaukee. I don't have much interest in anyone else on the Bucks today outside of Giannis, and Middleton I think is still fine. But we can go ahead and move on to the next game. looking at Phoenix and New Orleans. So on Phoenix today, when this team is fully healthy, I don't have too much interest in anyone outside of the top three guys, Booker, Paul, and Ayton. I think my favorite of the three is probably like Chris Paul or DeAndre Ayton. Chris Paul's price tag, I think, makes him a little bit more appealing than Devin Booker. Paul, we know, is just someone that can do a little bit of everything. He's not as scoring dependent as Devin Booker. Like, if Devin Booker's not scoring 30-plus points, he's probably not getting you there. Whereas Chris Paul, we've seen, can go out there and put up, 18, 12, and 8. Like, he can just do a little bit of everything. Legit has triple-double upside every night. Against a Pelicans team that is playing, is starting to push the pace again, is starting to play fast. I do have some interest in Chris Paul at 7,700. I think I do prefer him over Devin Booker on this slate. And at DeAndre Ayton's price tag, I have some interest in him as well. Steven Adams is expected to be out for the Pelicans today. He's listed as doubtful. So it's most likely going to be Willy Hernangomez starting at center for the Pelicans. And Willy Hernangomez is a good offensive center, but he's terrible on the defensive end. It is a really good matchup for Ayton. His price tag's come down. He's only 6,700 on DK. He's still pretty cheap on Yahoo as well. Price over there is only $24. I think Ayton, along with Valanciunas, those look like two of the better center options in the mid-range. I do like the price tag on Ayton. I like that the minutes have still been there. I know the production's not been great, but he's still getting the opportunity. The matchup's good against Willy Hernangomez, so I like Ayton, I like Paul, but I don't really have too much interest in anyone else on the Suns today. Now, moving on to the Pelicans. So this is a team that does probably give us our best value play of the day right now. With Steven Adams doubtful, I am assuming that Willy Hernangomez starts at center, and 3,900 on DK, $12 on Yahoo. Like, he is the best value play on the slate right now. Hernangomez, just dating back to his time when he was with the Hornets, last year and years before, he's always been a productive player when he does get playing time. He's been about a fantasy point per minute player throughout his career. Last game against Portland, after Steven Adams got injured, we saw Willy Hernangomez play 29 minutes, put up 33 DK points. He did start the second half in place of Steven Adams. I'm assuming he starts today. And if that's the case, for 3,900, if we're getting Willy Hernangomez in the starting lineup, he's probably going to play close to 30 minutes and is right now the best value play on the slate. So love Willy Hernangomez as a center value play. I think he's just way too cheap. At the top, though, these other Pelicans guys, Zion is someone that I haven't really been on a ton this year. I did play him last slate, and he did have a big game against Portland. We've seen Zion be way more aggressive lately. We've seen him scoring at will, 30-plus points in 2 straight games, 50-plus Draftkings points in both those games. He's been really aggressive. He's been great with the peripherals. He's been contributing with rebounds and assists lately. He can always get those defensive stats. Even at 8,400, like with the price tag coming up on Zion, I don't think he's like a top play, but still someone I do like quite a bit. I think he's like one of the safest plays on the board right now. I mean, it seems like Zion's giving you at least like 40 fantasy points almost every night, and we've kind of seen him spark some upside lately with 50-plus over his last 2 games. So I do like Zion at 8,400. I definitely would prefer him over Brandon Ingram. But like Lonzo, Eric Bledsoe, I don't have that much interest in. I think the guys I'm really looking to on the Pelicans today are definitely Zion, and obviously Willy Hernangomez is one of the best value plays today. But that does it for New Orleans. Moving on to Toronto and Minnesota. So on Toronto, this is a very appealing team today. We do know that Kyle Lowry, who got ruled out Thursday, they've already come out and said he's going to be doubtful for today. So Kyle Lowry is not expected to play. With Kyle Lowry out, the guys we want to go to are at the top. Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, I like them both a ton today. The price tags didn't really adjust for Lowry being out. VanVleet's still $7,800. Siakam is still $7,700. And on Yahoo, they're both $36, which I think is still too cheap for both guys. So definitely like both VanVleet and Siakam once again. VanVleet on Thursday night without Lowry, he did play 40 minutes. He was, obviously out there a ton. It was a close game. He didn't have that great of a game, only 39 DraftKings points. But honestly, I kind of like that he had a bad game because that's probably going to keep his ownership somewhat in check. I still do expect VanVleet to be pretty popular today because Lowry is out. But I think VanVleet, at 7,800, that's just too cheap when Lowry's off the floor. Obviously, he gets a big bump in usage. He's going to be the primary point guard. It's a much better matchup today against Minnesota. Minnesota, been playing really fast this year. They're a very bad defensive team. Love Fred VanVleet on this slate. One of my favorite plays overall. And Pascal Siakam I like a ton as well. He gets a bump without Kyle Lowry, gets a bump in usage. He's going to average more fantasy points per minute. We saw him have a pretty good game Thursday night against Milwaukee with Lowry out. Played 38 minutes, had 48 DraftKings points. Took 18 shots, was pretty aggressive all around, was able to contribute with 27, 6, and 5 to go along with 2 steals and 2 blocks and a steal. But yeah, same thing applies to Siakam as it does for VanVleet. Without Lowry, these guys get usage bumps. They're going to average, I think Lowry averages Van Vliet averages like 1.25, 1.3 fantasy points per minute. Siakam's right around there when Lowry's off the floor. It's a great matchup. I expect the usage to be dominated by these two guys. So really do like Van Vliet and Siakam on the slate. I think Norman Powell gets a bump as well. He had a really big game Thursday night with Lowry out, had 44 Draftkings points in 31 minutes. He would have played way more, but he was in foul trouble. He shot the ball incredibly well, which I think, is a bit of a fluke, but without Lowry, Powell does also benefit, going to get more minutes, going to get more shot attempts. He's the next guy that I would probably be looking to from Toronto today. Don't think I really want to go to OG, though, or Aaron Baines, or even Boucher. I don't have that much interest in. I think Boucher's viable, but don't love him on the slate. I think there's other guys I'd rather target, especially in this matchup against Karl-Anthony Towns. This does feel like a spot where they're probably going to use Aaron Baines more than they would Boucher. We did see DeAndre Bembry, though, move into the starting lineup Thursday with Kyle Lowry out. He did play a ton of minutes, but he was not productive at all. He only had 13.5 DK points in 37 minutes. Bembry, I don't expect to be very productive when he's out there, but if he's going to start again and play almost 40 minutes, in a matchup against Minnesota, he's only 3,100. Anytime you can get a guy starting in a good matchup this cheap, that's going to play a ton of minutes, he's at least viable. I don't know what his upside really is. I don't know what his ceiling really is, but the minutes should be there. The matchup's great. I don't mind him as a value option. There's probably going to be better value open up as the day goes on, but Bembry is a fine punt play if you are looking for a cheap small forward on this slate, assuming that he does start again. But I think that does it for Toronto. Now, in Minnesota, there really isn't a ton that I like from Minnesota today. I think everybody's just kind of appropriately priced. If I had to go to anyone, it would probably be Karl-Anthony Towns or Malik Beasley. Towns been playing a lot better lately. Finally had a big game last game against Indiana. Did get up to 37 minutes. It seems like he's going to be back to playing 34, 35 minutes, and that's what he should get today as long as this game stays close. At 9,200, he's more of a contrarian option. I don't think he really stands out as a top play, but definitely someone you could look to if you are paying up at center on this slate. Beasley, he came off the bench last game because of some disciplinary issues. He should be back in the starting lineup today. He was still even really good off the bench. Without D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley does benefit. At 6,900 in a matchup against the Raptors, does Malik Beasley stand out as a top play today? No, but I think he is, a viable option, especially if you are making a lot of lineups. But I don't think I really want to go to Edwards or Rubio at their price tags. Don't really want to go to any of the bench guys. So that does it for Minnesota. Now looking at the last game of the night, the Utah Jazz and the Clippers. So on the Jazz, we do need to keep an eye on the status of Mike Conley. He is currently questionable for this game. He had a chance to return last game, but he ultimately was ruled out. I think it's probably likely that Conley is back today. If Conley remains out, though, we know who's going to benefit. Mitchell, Clarkson, Ingles, those would be the guys you would want to look to. I think on this Utah team, if there's going to be anyone I target, it's probably going to be Mitchell and Clarkson, assuming Conley's out. If Conley plays, I really don't like anything from the Jazz today. This is just not that appealing of a team when they're appropriately priced, when they're fully healthy. Like I said, Mitchell always has upside, someone you could look to. Did have 52 DK points in 33 minutes when these teams played a couple days ago. I think Clarkson had a good game off the bench as well. He had 32 DK points in 33 minutes. Like I said, if Conley's out, those would be the two guys I'd be going to that I would be willing to play. But I don't have much interest in anyone else on Utah. This game overall is not that appealing, especially if Conley plays. I don't have any interest in really anyone on Utah. But on the Clippers side, we do need to watch the status of both Kawhi and PG. So lately, Kawhi and PG have both been out, but right now, for today's game, they are currently both listed as questionable. Kawhi questionable with a lower leg injury, and Paul George questionable with a toe injury. If they both return, if Kawhi and PG are both able to play today, I really don't like anything on the Clippers. Everyone's just appropriately priced. Everyone's been priced up for those guys being out, so nobody would really be playable outside of Kawhi and PG, but I don't know if I really want to go to them in this type of matchup. If one of them plays and one of them sits, if Kawhi plays and PG sits, I think Kawhi is viable. If Kawhi sits and PG plays, I think PG is viable. But Lou Will, even if they're both out, I don't really love Lou Will at his price tag. Same with Marcus Morris. He was really bad last game. Yeah, this is just not that appealing of a game. Not the best late night hammer. I don't really have much interest in anyone in this game, overall. So I think that does it for all 9 games today, guys. I think we broke everything down team by team. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I do appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed, hit that like button down below before you do get out of here. Hit that subscribe button as well. Be sure to click that notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. You also get notified every time I do go live. Like I said, I'll be live most likely around 4 Eastern Friday afternoon. If you are able to tune in, I can answer all your questions for tonight's slate. We can break everything down, talk through everything. But yeah, good luck tonight, guys. Appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you in the next one.